Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 The World for the Building Green 2022, the digital conference. Building Green is a flagship campaign of the PHILGBC events and consists of year-round activities that encourage participation in the green building advocacy. I am Mario Suato with the PHILGBC National Secretariat, and I will be today's facilitator. Thank you to the PHILGBC Board of Trustees for initiating this event. Our chair, Mr. Edgar Sabidong, Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer of Artaland Corporation. Our Vice Chair, Mr. Rena Ramos, Principal, Ecotectonica Incorporated. Our Secretary, Ms. Elizabeth Mendoza, Managing Director, Monocrete Construction Philippines. And our Treasurer, Mr. Ramon Rufino, CEO, Neo Property Management. And the members of the board, Ms. Catherine Ilagan, President and COO of Philinvest Alabang, Mr. Felino Palafox Jr., Principal of Palafox Associates, Mr. Hener Liwanag, Junior Partner, GF and Partners Architects, Mr. Luis Changon, Country Manager, Sangoban Philippines, Ms. Audrey Belpo, Managing Director, World Home Depot, Mr. Francisco Arellano, Consultant, Maynila Water Services, and Mr. Gabriel Maria Angelo Cascante. I would also like to acknowledge the CEO of the PhilGBC, Mr. Christopher De La Cruz, the Executive Director, Ms. Maria Ana Tunggol, and the PhilGBC National Secretariat for organizing this conference. We would like to thank our members and sustaining corporate sponsors that support the programs of the PhilGBC and for making our activities possible. Our diamond sustaining sponsor, Neo Property Management, our gold sustaining sponsor, Wall Vision Corporation, and our silver sustaining sponsors, Artaland Corporation, Daikin Air Conditioning Philippines, Ecotectonica, Firefly Electric and Lighting, GF and Partners Architects, Gigatech, KPI Elevators, Monocrete Construction Philippines, Sangoban Philippines, SMCC Philippines, Surface Repair Solutions, and World Home Depot. We would also like to thank our BG2022 strategic partners for their support in making this Building Green Conference 2022 possible. Our Diamond Sustaining Sponsor and National Secretariat Sponsor, NEO, our Gold Sustaining Sponsor, Wall Vision Corporation, our BG 2022 Gold Strategic Partners, Aboitiz Infra Capital Economic Estates, City Homes Builder and Development, our BG 2022 Silver Strategic Partners, First Balfour, Daikin Air Conditioning Philippines, and Wall Vision Corporation, and our BG 2022 Bronze Strategic Partners, AGC Asia Pacific, Botanica Nature Residences, Philinvest City, Datem Incorporated, FPD Asia Property Services, and Monocrete Construction Philippines. Before we continue, please be reminded of the following event guidelines. This webinar will be recorded by the PhilGBC National Secretariat for documentation purposes. We encourage active participation during the event. You may ask your questions using the question box in the GoToWebinar panel. Questions that you will raise will be addressed during the discussion period. Upon request, an electronic certificate of attendance will be issued by the PhilGBC National Secretariat to your registered email address, provided you are present for more than 50% of the allotted time for each session. You have completed the feedback survey, which will be sent to your registered email address after the event, and that you've requested a copy of your certificate through events@philgbc.org. Today, we start the celebration of the World Green Building Week 2022. We are one with around 70 national green building councils all around the world to celebrate our annual global campaign with this year's theme, Building for Everyone. Our holistic approach to build for everyone aligns our focuses on planet, communities, and the economy with the Sustainable Development Goals. And these shared challenges reveal the scale of what is possible when we come together. This World Green Building Week, our global network is coming together to accelerate sustainable built environments for everyone, everywhere. In this episode, The World will showcase the global programs on advancing net zero and better places for people, and we will hear from leaders from the national GBCs in the World GBC Asia Pacific Regional Network to share their insight and experience in the implementation of their respective green building programs that provide positive outcomes for people, planet, and profit. We will first hear from Ms. Joy Guy, head of the Asia Pacific programs of the World GBC, for updates on the global campaigns and the activities of the World GBC Asia Pacific Regional Network. We also have the privilege of hearing from the leadership of the national GBCs in the region, including Dr. Kerry Chan, Executive Director of the Hong Kong GBC and the Chair of the World GBC APN. He is an expert in building energy efficiency and an active member in various advisory councils and committees with the Hong Kong SAR government. He played a key role in Hong Kong's Green Building Assessment Tool in 1995, and in 2019, he has put advancing net zero carbon emissions as one of Hong Kong GBC's main focus. Ms. Yvonne So is the Executive Director of Singapore GBC. Her work experience spans across the public, private, and non-profit sectors, including management roles in the Building and Construction Authority of the Singapore government. She chairs the Singapore Accreditation Council Committee on Certification and is a member of the Singapore Standards Council Committees on Building and Construction and Environment and Resources. Ms. Hang Fan is a chair of Vietnam GBC and the APAC Sustainable Market Development Director in Saint-Gobain. She has over 20 years of experience in building science and acoustics, fire, thermal, environmental, and sustainable solutions in the construction sector. Mr. C.K. Pang is the CEO of Malaysia GBC, as in an author of energy efficiency in buildings for the tropical climate, and has experience in providing consultancy on sustainability and net zero in buildings. He is a founding member of the Malaysia GBC and a founding committee member of the Green Building Index. Mr. Surendro is the Executive Director of GBC Indonesia and is leading the development and evaluation of green building applications under the Green Ship Rating Tool. He has extensive experience and expertise in developing and administering education programs and disseminating green building concepts to their stakeholders. Mr. M. Anand is the Deputy Executive Director of CII's Indian GBC and the Vice Chair of the World GBC APN. With his over 30 years of experience, he has worked closely with the private sector and government in designing green buildings under IGBC's Green Building Rating System and has authored several technical articles on energy efficiency and green building. Mr. Yasushi Kinoshita is the co-chairperson of Green Building Japan. He is a seasoned real estate investment professional and representative member of Eminence Partners GK. Before founding Eminence Partners, Mr. Kinoshita worked for international investment management firms and Japanese commercial banks, as well as invested over $10 billion in real estate-related ventures. Last but not least, we have Mr. Jeff Oatman. He is the head of the collaboration and membership of GBC Australia, and he has overseen the certification of more than 700 Green Star projects and has helped to build a thriving green building ecosystem in Australia. He champions a collaborative network of GBCA members and industry partners in working to deliver world's best practice on an array of building and community projects. We will be opening the floor for questions after all of the presentations from our speakers. As mentioned earlier, you may send your questions through the use of the question box, and these questions will be addressed during the open forum. Ms. Rowena Ramos, our Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees of the PHILGBC, will be delivering this episode's closing remarks. So for our first presentation, let us welcome Ms. Joy Guy, Head of Asia Pacific Programs of the World GBC.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends around the world. No matter which time zone you're in, our venture towards advancing net zero never stops. My name is Joy Guy, World Green Building Council Asia Pacific Programs Head. I'm also the founder of Joy of Sustainability, specializing sustainability and positive psychology, building climate sustainability, empowering positive mindset. Our world has changed so much since 2020. We had pandemic, we had disagreements between countries, we had drastic economical changes in the world, we had COP26 with both positivities and disappointment, and many more that are new and uncertain. But one thing never changed is our commitment towards sustainability and total decarbonization by 2050. The World Green Building Council catalyzed the uptake of sustainable buildings for everyone, everywhere. This year, we are celebrating World Green Building Council's 20th anniversary. The Asia Pacific region is also celebrating our APN Festival, starting from June all the way until November, with a designated theme for each month. And to begin the celebration, we wanted to start from updating you on our progress in climate action, advancing net zero. In order to better support the industry in accelerating this advancing net zero progress, we know that Asia Pacific region has its unique condition, culture, and development pace as well. Therefore, the question here is, how can we support our regions better? What is the best way for us to help the organizations in APN in mitigating climate change or creating a suitable solution to address the changes they face in the market when achieving net zero? With these questions in mind, we started to gather a group of partners and net zero collaborators to develop this net zero readiness framework, aiming to build one intermediate step towards net zero commitment and action, and we call this Net Zero Readiness Framework. The goal is to connect with a global advocacy. World Green Building Council has launched the Whole Life Carbon Commitment in 2018, focusing on the commitment of operational carbon. It wasn't an easy experience, but until today, we already have hundreds of companies stepping forward and committing to achieve net zero by 2030. At the same time, we have also gotten so much positive feedback and support. It was really satisfying to see organizations stepping forward to put net zero as their vision, their commitment, and their strategy plan. However, the scientists know this is not enough. In September last year, World Green Building Council published the Enhanced Commitment Pathway by expanding its scope to recognize enhanced leadership action in tackling embodied carbon emissions from the building and construction sector. In this commitment signatory, we are requesting leading companies to commit to net zero for both operational and embodied carbon, having offset only as the last resort. And we know this is posing new challenges and new work for organizations and industry. This is why we started to plan for something like this readiness framework to prepare the industry to be more ready, and eventually this will lead to the success of advancing net zero commitment and actions. Therefore, before seeing the green light, we wanted to pause and reflect. What do we need in order to achieve net zero? And what else can we do, and what others have done so far? So now let's meet the readiness framework. Based on the new commitment initiative, also to support the Asia Pacific region in a more holistic way, the net zero readiness framework we are developing consists of 5 categories: government leadership, technical solutions approaches, finance, data, and mindset. So I believe this should be the most comprehensive framework, covering from policy to solutions and to positive psychology. And these are almost all the aspects we know so far that may influence the advancing of net zero. Also, learnings, webinars, and conferences are great ways to equip ourselves with a strong understanding of what local barriers look like, so that we can effectively address them to accelerate the transition towards decarbonization. Under each of these 5 categories, we further unfolded into more readiness goals to break it down and expand to more specific targets. Hence, we're able to measure and compare the practices around the region and build greater awareness of the resources available. This framework will also further unfold these readiness goals into more performance indicators, so that there are clearer steps guiding the industry towards achieving the readiness goals. So what you are looking at is a holistic framework covering nearly all aspects we know so far about advancing net zero, at the same time supporting the market understanding with case studies and solutions in that region. In this way, we are closing the knowledge gap, also building market confidence. The framework will be hosted on the World Green Building Council webpage with supporting info and case studies, so that when organizations are considering the net zero commitment signatory or net zero projects, they can access a full load of info related to advancing net zero and also formulate their own strategic roadmap accordingly. To further verify this framework to align with the market needs and expectations, we also conducted surveys and workshops with 7 green building councils so far, including Singapore, Hong Kong, India, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam. During the workshop, we have engaged more than 400 industry experts to verify and expand the framework with local context. We plotted the readiness goals into 4 phases according to the importance and also the likelihood to be implemented in the industry. If this is high important and high likely to be implemented, we will classify them under the action zone, which is the immediate action that the industry need to be implementing. If it fall into the high importance and less likely to be implemented, we will categorize them into the gap zone, which the industry also needs to pay attention about what is holding them back from implementing this. If it's less important and less likely to be implemented in the market, we will mark it as not relevant. And if it's less important and highly likely to be implemented in the market, they are classified under low priority. So we also see there's a great synergy between the different countries in the region. For example, the most important and most likely are the items like net zero benchmarking tools for different types of building, having a clear agreed definition of net zero. And there are also some of the gaps we have classified. For example, the government to establish carbon emission target and provide roadmaps, or putting net zero as a mandatory requirement in the region, as well as national grid decarbonization plan and ready availability of clean energy options to the industry. The survey and workshop discussion also pointed us to some burning needs to the industry. For example, the upfront cost. And the next is to have an appealing business model. At the same time, also have a positive and influential mindset. And then we also discuss the source of the offset and also the accessibility to renewable energy. In addition to the above challenges, the top to-do list, therefore, is to create benchmarking tools, having a national roadmap and a commitment target, and having a clear definition of net zero. So this framework will be launched by phases on our newly revamped webpage. Stay tuned with our updates on the webpage progress as well. So I'm also inviting you to join us during the Asia Pacific Festival. Let's grow as one, be united towards one goal. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Joy. Our next presentation will be from Dr. Carrie Chan, Executive Director of Hong Kong GBC. Carrie?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Carrie Chan, Hong Kong Green Council. I'm also chair the Asia Pacific Network. In the coming 15 minutes, what I will do is to have a brief discussion on the focus area of the Asia Pacific Network and also the Hong Kong Green Building Council. Next slide, please. Okay. Joy has just briefly mentioned about the readiness framework, and I'm going to show you briefly how this can be used and of value to the industry by what I've input the case of Hong Kong. Next, please. Yeah, what I have done is that under this 5 category of the readiness framework, I put into the roadmap of the Hong Kong government into this framework. In the government leadership, the government has decided to have a steering committee, which is chaired by the executive director, the chief executive himself. And they're also having an office of climate change and carbon neutrality within the government to coordinate all these efforts within the government. On the finance, the Hong Kong government is determined to set up a green finance hub, not just for Hong Kong, but within the region, and establishing a green economy, and to create job opportunities, create investments, etc. And they have also set up a target, a budget of 240 billion Hong Kong dollars to combat climate change in the next 15 to 20 years. For the mindset, the government is establishing public engagement, advisory committees, carbon neutral communities, and also capacity buildings. For the data and also technical solutions, and they have promote I&T developments and reindustrialization and facilitate the application of decarbonization technologies and green R&D. So this is what the government has put into the climate change framework. Next, please. Here, the government cannot be alone in going for carbon neutrality. They have to work with NGOs and also the Hong Kong Greening Council. Here, I have put under also the 5 categories, the initiative by the government and also the Hong Kong Greening Councils. So this is just an illustration of how we can use this data and input this data into this framework. Next, please. Now, sorry, last night. The previous slide, please. Sorry. Okay. Now, I'm not going to the details, but you can see that this framework can facilitate the government and also the Green Building Council and other actors of the industry to see what each others are doing and also learn from each other, knowing their gaps and also formulate their own strategic plans. With this, we can also focus our discussion on what works and what is not working under different situations. Next, please. We are not advancing as fast as we would like to see on health and well-being and circularities, and more works need to be done to translate the global projects at the regional level. Next, please. Green finance is a game changer. It shows the serious concerns of investors in the managing of climate risk in their investment portfolio. The green finance is fueling the development of green technologies and built for the building and retrofitting greener buildings and the wider built environment. The region has high demand on sustainable finance. There are more to learn for the Asia Pacific Network, and please stay tuned for the Asia Pacific Network in October, which is regarding on green finance. Next, please. Next, I will share with you the journey of advancing net zero for the Hong Kong Green Building Council and in Hong Kong. Next. But in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Green Building Council has launched the Advancing Net Zero project in November 2019. The key messages that we have bring out was the Hong Kong Green Council will be promoting advancing net zero within the industry. The second message is very, very important, is that net zero is feasible, because if it's not feasible, no one will do anything about it. The third message is that we would like to strive being a role model for high-rise, high-density cities in subtropical region. Next. In 2020 and 2021, what we have done is that we have held a series of 6 webinars focusing on solutions of advancing net zero. And also in November last year, we have held an ideas competition for new and existing building. We have we have tried to make it as real as possible. And we have a developer as a key sponsor for this competition. Now, how to make this as real as possible is that they are using a real site with all the details that they will produce for a consultant for tendering for new projects. Now, existing building is very, very important. Well, because more than 80% of the existing buildings will still be in our city by 2050. So therefore, for the existing building, the developer has chosen one of their buildings, and they give out all the design of the buildings and also the operating data, including energy profile of that building for competition. And its overwhelming success, we have over 60 organizations forming into 22 teams competing for this competition. And we have got a lot of inspiring solutions, and we are now trying to see how we can use those solutions. And then in December last year, we have an international conference. Again, it's a huge success with each section, more than 2,000 registered for each section. And about 10% of the participants are overseas. There are roughly 100 speakers speaking in this international conference focusing on solutions. All of this we have put into YouTube, and you can very easily search it by typing in Hong Kong Computing Council Advancing Net Zero. Through this, we can share with the solutions with the rest of the world. Next, please. Now, this year, what we are doing is that we have established a robust and energy intensity profile for Hong Kong's commercial buildings. With this database, we are now going to set up an energy certification. This energy certification is a copy of the Singapore's super energy certification. We learned from them. But instead of just a super low energy cert, we have 4 categories: low energy cert, extra low energy cert, super low energy cert, and the last one is net zero ready certifications. There's another system that we are building, is the target setting and progress certification, which is to facilitate the building owners to set targets to 2050 to zero carbon ready criteria. We make reference to science-based target initiatives and also use the database that we have built up. So this, hopefully, we can have a lot of developers, or most of the developers, trying to set up their own targets and then go for it. And we will have progress certification if they meet the progress that they have targeted. Next slide, please. Now, Joy has mentioned that there's a lot of immediate actions that we need is aligning the industry in terms of definitions and these sort of things. So on this, we are now working on a climate change framework to align the industry from carbon neutrality to climate risk. Now, this is a living document, which is we are trying to align the directions, the definitions, the targets, scoping, database, best practices, climate risk assessment and disclosure, adaptation and resilience, and also direction for further researches. So this is, as I said earlier, is a living document. We will update it from time to time. We are trying to have a final draft by the end of this year and also launch it as the first version in the first quarter of next year. Next slide, please. On the solutions, we will focus our efforts on mainstreaming best practices for building energy efficiencies. On these key initiatives that we are going, the first is retro commissioning, which is more transforming the industry from experience-based to knowledge-based, because it is emphasized on data analytics. And we have started this back in 2016. And we are advancing on building capacity for the industry, not just for Hong Kong, but also for the Greater Bay Area. And on this, we are collaborating with the government to extend our expertise to the APAC economies. The next we are starting is on retrofitting, which is very important in order for the existing building stocks to become zero carbon ready by 2050. On this, we are now in the advanced stage of establishing a guidebook on retrofitting, which we will launch by November this year. The second thing is that we will try to promote testing and piloting of new technologies through living laboratories, which I will detail later. We will also promote retrofitting within the Greater Bay Area through a memorandum of collaboration, which we will sign with the government and also some other organizations in China and in the Greater Bay Area, including Tsinghua University. This will happen in November this year. We will be holding a number of webinars and also conference within these 2 years. And we will try to link it with the green finance, because without green finance, a lot of retrofitting works may not be accelerated as fast as we want to see. And regarding smart technologies, AI is a growing application in Hong Kong, but in different types of applications. So therefore, what we are trying to see is whether we can have a competition on AI technologies, on the application of AI technologies, and how they are going to be applied. Next, please. Now, I've mentioned about the living laboratory concept of matching newly and less adopted technologies and ideas. What we have done is we try to identify the promising technologies that is not really yet widely adopted, and then we match it with the developers to see which developers in their own building want to try out these technologies or study on these technologies. This includes desiccant dehumidification, AI technologies, and also having a second glazing with the existing single glaze windows, and inline pumps, and also other initiatives coming out from the net zero competition. Next slide, please. Now, this is an examples that we are testing in with one of the buildings in Hong Kong. Is the vacuum insulated glass, which is installed to a single glazing window. It's very, very successful. We carried out the test by the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, which is independent. The return on investment in this project, if we are doing the whole building, is 7.9 years only. And there are a lot of other benefits of this retrofitting glazing, including the reduction of internal reflectance from 47% to 35%, the UV transmission reduced to 5%, and the acoustic performance of glass improvements. The study on these initiatives is not just purely on energy saving, but also climate resilient analysis and also thermal comfort. Next, please. So this is one of the analysis. They are separating into if you are instead of doing it for all the 4 phases of the building, they also look at how about if you use it just on the south facing, west facing, north facing, east facing. So it indicated that if the glass is installed just on the west facing, the payback is only about 4 years, which is very, very justifiable. So next slide, please. Next. So the conclusion from this, without going into details, is the VIG retrofit can effectively stabilize the inner surface temperature of the window and significantly reduce the transmission through windows on both sunny and cloudy days. The second is the risk of condensation on the inner surface of windows can be eliminated because of the excellent insulation performance of VIG inner plane. The third is VIG retrofit provides a significant energy saving potential in Hong Kong. The annual energy saving and the initial investment reduction of chillers would contribute to the economic benefit of the VIG retrofit applications. The fourth one is due to the thermal comfort improvement. The cooling set point can be reset for 1 degree higher without compromising the thermal satisfaction of occupants. The next is VIG retrofit provides a noticeable environmental benefits, which can reduce the carbon emission of 100 kilogram per year per square meter for the application on clear glass. But if you have a better performance single glazing already, then the reduction will be 66.9 kilogram per square meter per year. Then we go to climate resilience. The VIG retrofit application can also reduce energy consumption compared with other single glazed windows because of the increasing indoor air temperature due to climate change in the future. The last is considering the declining price of this technology in the market and also the increasing price of energy globally. This retrofit application could provide greater economic benefits in the upcoming years. So with this is one of the examples that we have done to test out this living laboratory concept. So hopefully this can make a lot of new technologies or emerging technologies to be mainstreamed in the coming years. Next slide, please. So we have arranged a number of visits with keen interest to the industry. So far, we have carried out 2 site visits with 45 participants joining the visit. They are from developers, consultants, utilities companies, and utility companies, and also government departments. Next slide, please. So we have not been as focused as advancing net zero on circularities and health and well-being. But what we have done is that we have input those into the newly revamping building interior and existing version of the BEAM Plus system, which is the building environmental assessment methods for Hong Kong. We are now maturing the green product market, which includes facilitating responsible procurement policies, expanding product categories, increase options for each product categories, leverage on BEAM Plus and green finance, and raise market efficiencies. And the last is we've tried to establish the Hong Kong Green Council as an instrument for green finance. This includes the assessment tools and certification schemes, retrofitting, and advancing net zero. Next slide, please. The coming generation is very important, and we have made a vision that all future students to have a good understanding and experience on green building. So we are working. We have a project called the Jockey Club BEAM Plus in School project, which we are applying for the funding from the Hong Kong Jockey Club for another 300 schools in 5 years. We are now doing 120 schools already within this scheme. Next, please. So what this is that we are launching a BEAM Plus existing schools version, which is a much simpler BEAM Plus tools without the need of a consultant by the school. So the teachers and students, they will be the BEAM consultants for their own school, for the BEAM assessment and also continued improvement. We believe that through this experience learning and service learning, it will be very effective to bring our future generations up to speed regarding green buildings. Next slide, please. So that is all for my sharing today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carrie. So we'll proceed with the next presentation from Ms. Yvonne So, Executive Director of Singapore GBC.
A very good day to all of you and greetings from the Singapore Green Building Council. I'm Yvonne. I'm the Executive Director of the Singapore Green Building Council, and I'm very pleased to be here today at the Philippines Green Building Council's Building Green Conference, and I'll be sharing about some green building updates from Singapore. To provide some context, Singapore submitted our Enhanced Nationally Determined Contribution, or NDC for short, and the long-term low emissions development strategy to the UNFCCC in March 2020. The enhanced NDC pledges to peak the country's absolute emissions at 65 megatons CO2 around 2030, whilst the low emissions development strategy builds on that by targeting to halve that emissions figure by 2050, and to also aim to achieve net zero emissions as soon as viable thereafter. Well, from the NDC and the low emissions development strategy, a whole of country movement was developed to translate the targets into action, not just by the government, but also to spell out the expectations and transformation that each of the economic sector would need to embark on, and also how even the private citizens would need to play their part in. So this action plan is known as the Singapore Green Plan 2030. The Singapore Green Plan has 5 key pillars, and these are firstly, City in Nature, which aims to create a green, livable, and sustainable home for Singaporeans. Second, Sustainable Living, which aims to make actions like saving energy, resources, and reducing carbon emissions into an everyday way of life for everyone. Third, Energy Reset, where the aim is to use cleaner energy and increase energy efficiency in every way possible, whether at the industry or consumer level. So the building sector's responsibilities and contributions fall under this pillar, which is why we, the Singapore Green Building Council, together with the Building and Construction Authority, have developed jointly a 2030 Green Building Master Plan for our sector. For the green economy pillar, this seeks to identify green growth opportunities to create new jobs, transform industries, and harness sustainability as a theme to develop new capabilities. The last pillar is a resilient future. And today, I think we can all so much better appreciate why preparing for climate change and developing climate resilience is such an important topic that countries and cities need to prepare early for, whilst action is still possible. So the Singapore Green Building Master Plan was launched in March last year, after over a year of very intense industry discussions, most of which that took place over digital platforms. Well, after lots of deliberations, the industry and government agreed that we will work together to deliver 3 key outcomes by 2030. These 3 outcomes all have 80 in it, which is a very auspicious number for us. So the Singapore Green Building Master Plan is also known as the 80-80-80 plan. The first outcome is to have 80% of our buildings' gross floor area, or GFA, to be green by 2030. This is not a new target, but an ongoing one that was first set in 2009. So today we have greened about 49% of our real estate space. And in the next lab, we hope to step up this pace of greening. And since this journey of greening our buildings started more than 10 years ago, we now also need to do an upgrade of that previously greened building stock in order to continuously update performance to current sustainability standards. The second outcome is for 80% of our new buildings to be super low energy from 2030 onwards. So what super low energy means is that the building is essentially 60% more energy efficient than the building code requirement in 2005. The third outcome is for an 80% improvement in energy efficiency by 2030 for our best-in-class buildings. The plan is to give greater support for research and innovation and to also deploy these new solutions to market in a timely and efficient manner. These are some of the key measures that are being taken to achieve the three objectives of the Green Building Master Plan. Regulations play a useful role in lifting standards, and requirements on energy efficiency in buildings have been a part of our building code for a long time, since 1979. And this was further emphasized and in a more holistic way in 2008 with the introduction of specific environmental sustainability regulations that are based on the Singapore Green Mark scheme. So with the refreshed Green Building Master Plan, the minimum energy efficiency requirements for buildings have been raised significantly to reflect the latest targets. So Green Mark is our national building rating scheme, a green building rating scheme. And though it is a voluntary scheme, the market participation in Green Mark is high. The Green Mark scheme encourages building projects to aim for higher performance above the regulatory compliance levels, and it is regularly updated every few years to reflect the appropriate aspiration levels for buildings. So the latest updated version is now known as the Green Mark 2021 version. Other measures that we have to support the Green Building Master Plan include having the public sector take the lead in adopting the higher standards, in particular to get the public sector buildings to all be super low energy by 2030. And for the private sector, incentive schemes have been introduced to support projects that are aiming to achieve exceptional performance or which are test bedding innovative solutions. So the financial sector in Singapore is well prepared now to support our green efforts with both green and sustainability linked financing programs. So let me now move on to talk about the refreshed Green Mark scheme. Firstly, a very key change is that the framework for the criteria has been significantly restructured. The various criteria frameworks that we had in the past, for example, separate frameworks for new buildings and for existing buildings, has now been streamlined into one common but flexible standard that can cater to all types of building typologies and building types, whether new or existing. This also means that the criteria framework has been restructured in such a way that the pathways for various building types will be mapped out, and differentiation has also been built in to ensure that it is relevant and achievable. So building projects now have the flexibility to select the sustainability achievement fields that makes the most sense for their project and where they want to demonstrate exceptional performance in, if they wish to do so. So for this, I will share more about it in a later slide. The refresh of the Green Mark criteria has also taken into account global trends and developments. The World Green Building Council has defined the need for green buildings to address a few key issues, including climate action, health and well-being, resources, and circularity. These metrics of global green building outcomes have been incorporated into the Green Mark 2021 criteria. And in addition, the refresh framework also spells out the ways in which our buildings play a role in delivering on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. This in turn will also keep us aligned with the longer-term green and sustainable finance development directions, which in itself is also a very rapidly evolving area. This is broadly what the certification framework looks like. The energy efficiency section, the first one in blue at the top, is the only mandatory section that all projects have to meet the requirements for. The energy efficiency improvements that have to be met varies from 50% for Gold Plus projects to 60% for super low energy qualification band. These improvements are expressed in reference to 2005 levels, but no worries. The actual energy performance targets are fully elaborated in the criteria. So let's take, for example, a large office building with GFA of more than 15,000 square meters. The energy usage intensity will have to be lower than 155 kilowatt hour per square meter per year to meet the Gold Plus standard, and below 115 kilowatt hours per square meter per year to meet the super low energy standards. So the remaining 5 sections of intelligence, health and well-being, whole life carbon, maintainability, and resilience complete the rest of the assessment framework to ensure that a green mark building is also a smart enabled building that adds to the health and well-being of occupants and users, optimizes the use of materials, and minimizes embodied carbon, and is one that can also be maintained readily and be resilient to meet future needs. So where the 5 sustainability sections are concerned, flexibility has been built in, and there are no fixed prerequisites for each section, and also no requirement to score any minimum points in all or any of the sections. Rather, projects just need to score a minimum of points in areas that meet the context of the project. So that means that the points can be spread out across the 5 sustainability sections that are relevant to the project. Each section has 15 available points to be scored. Projects that are aiming for Gold Plus have to score 30 points in total from across the sections, whilst projects aiming for Platinum will have to score 40 points. Projects that achieve a score of 10 or more points in a section are deemed to have demonstrated excellent performance in that section and are awarded a badge to recognize the achievement. This badge is on top of the Green Mark rating. Projects can choose as many badges as they would like to be recognized in for their sustainability achievement. The project certificate would have the associated badge or icon along with the Green Mark Building Achievement logo. And the building owner can also display these graphics in their building or use them in marketing collaterals and materials to showcase the exemplary performance of the building in those sustainability areas. This is how the Green Mark sustainability sections of energy efficiency, intelligence, health and well-being, whole life carbon, maintainability, and resilience align with the specific UN SDGs. The Singapore Green Building Master Plan that was launched last year during the COVID pandemic has really galvanized action and provided much positivity for the industry to look forward to develop new capabilities and seize new opportunities to take our buildings to the next level. It has also given rise to a new awareness of carbon emissions as a key metric to quantify the environmental impact of our actions, which is why the Singapore Green Building Council launched a pledge last year for industry organizations to come forward and indicate their interest and willingness to work together to address the embodied carbon of our building and construction activities. The Singapore Built Environment Embodied Carbon Pledge calls for organizations to opt for building materials with lower embodied carbon, to minimize material usage and waste through collaborative design and optimization, and to electrify and utilize renewable energy in construction site processes. So to date, I'm pleased to share that we have 91 organizations who have signed up to the pledge to accelerate the decarbonization of our built environment. We have also launched an embodied carbon calculator to help the industry make more informed decisions on building material options. And the next phase of our work on the carbon calculator is to address the embodied carbon of mechanical and electrical equipment and components. Lastly, the efforts of the industry and government to push for higher performance for green buildings must also be supported by the people who will occupy these buildings. So to this end, the Singapore Green Building Council has also launched a resource hub to educate the general public and our broader community on the key attributes and benefits of green buildings. This is done in a rather fun way through things like home fit-out planner games, short articles, and we have various other resources as well. With that, I have come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a good day and a beneficial time at the rest of the conference segments ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, for that presentation. So we'll proceed with the next presentation from Ms. Hang Phan, Chair of the Vietnam GBC.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly, Hang.
Okay, good. Can you give me the control to the cursor? Okay, good. I have it. So good morning, everyone, and it is my pleasure to share with you what we have been doing in Vietnam GBC to promote the our festival. So we are member of the World GBC, and in Vietnam we developed the green scheme called Lotus scheme. And with Lotus, we have the Lotus for different type of building type, from residential building, commercial building, and so on and so forth. And so this year, to support the festival and the 3 global chains. Next slide, please. Okay. So this year, from the beginning of the year, we start to have a seminar sharing about the 3 global chains of OGBC, and after that we have the series of activity to promote one of each theme, with the idea of going in deep into the technicality and sharing the expertise in each of the theme. So it's a target both changing the mindset and as well as to provide the knowledge for the market. So in June this year, we have the first event targeting the climate actions, where we have the speakers and participants in the construction market, from architect to developers and green consultant, to share what can we do to tackle the climate change action in Vietnam? Knowing that Vietnam, since COP26, our Prime Minister have committed the net zero carbon by 2050. So there is a new movement in the market, and especially in the construction sector, that they call for the action and initiative. How can we really actualize our promise? So this event come at the right time. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we in this we introduce the whole life carbon approach of the BG2022 because I believe myself that to really decarbonize the sector, if we only talk about operational carbon, it is not enough. Although today operational carbon accounted for 2/3 of the whole life carbon, but in the future when we have more energy efficient building, then the proportion will change and the embodied carbon will contribution will be increased. So we introduce the approach of necessity to approach to address both operational carbon and embodied carbon. Next, please. And the key actions, how can we achieve our target? How can we really decarbonize the building sector? You can see on the chart at the left-hand corner here showing that there are 3 groups of action we can do. Firstly, address the energy efficiency of the building, and secondly, use the renewable energy, and thirdly, reduce the embodied carbon emission throughout the whole life cycle of the building. And if we can address the 3 group of action, then in the chart it shows that we can achieve the target of net zero carbon by 2050. And as I mentioned earlier, the operational carbon today accounted for 75% or 2/3 of the whole life carbon of the building, and the embodied carbon is about 1/3. So if we apply this energy efficiency for the operational carbon and also for the embodied carbon plus the use of the renewable energy, then basically these are the 3 group of actions that would help us to achieve our target. Next, please. And here I want to share how do we in our Lotus, our green scheme that developed by BG2022, how do we address these 3 group of actions? So as you can see here is the energy category in our Lotus green scheme, and you can see that we address the categories such as energy efficiency, performance, or passive design, and total building energy use as a prerequisite. So to enter the green scheme, these are the prerequisites that the projects need to have. And then from there on, depending on how much improvement that they can achieve, then they can get more points for the energy category. So the total building energy use, for example, maximum they can have up to 14 points, depending on how many percent they can save from the baseline. So maximum they can save up to 40%. In that case, they can achieve for 14 points. And in this energy category, you can see that we addressed both the actions of increased energy efficiency as well as the use of renewable energy, because we also award point for the renewable energy. So this category addressed 2 out of the 3 group of the actions. And the next category, next slide, energy, the next slide, material category. Here is where we address the embodied carbon. We know that the embodied carbon lies on building material. So in this category, we address the use of non-baked material, reduce concrete use. We all know that the concrete have a very high embodied carbon within the material. So reduce concrete use or use sustainable material, which mean the material which have the low embodied carbon. we gain point here. And non-baked material is something quite interesting in Vietnam, because most of the building they use the clay brick, yeah, and to burn the clay brick, it is a very high energy consumption. And the government here, they promote the regulation that promoting the use of a non-baked materials such as AAC blocks or gypsum board or other type of lightweight material to replace the use of the burn brick. So that's how they call non-baked material. So all these solutions are the low embodied carbon solutions in the building, and we address all this in our material category, and this is to address the reduction of the embodied carbon emissions in the building. Okay, so these are the examples I want to show you how the use of the green scheme in the projects can help to decarbonize the building, how to reduce the energy emission of the whole building by using the Lotus Green scheme in our case. Next, please. Yeah, and this is a very interesting case study. It is the project that won Lotus Platinum few years back. This is a United Nations house, and they choose the Lotus as a national green scheme. So to share with you that in Vietnam we have several green schemes existing at the same time, like LEED, Green Mark, Lotus, but somehow United Nations they choose Lotus as a local green scheme. And with this building, they managed to have a different scheme to save the energy use. So they reduce 30% of the energy use from the baseline through the scheme, such as landscape area to limit the heat island effect, or total roof area is a green roof. So that help to reduce the energy use up to 30%. And they also use the existing structure to renovate from the existing structure, and that is tremendous help to reduce the embodied carbon emissions of the building. And in this building, they also use the solar panel that generate more than 100,000 kilowatt hour per year. So this is a very typical example of a building applying all three group of actions: increase energy efficiency, use of renewable energy, and reduce the embodied carbon emission throughout the design stage to achieve the Lotus Platinum. And of course, they reduce the energy bill for themselves as well. Next, please. Next slide, please. Can I help? Yeah. Here, I also want to share with you some initiative from the government. So as I mentioned earlier, the Ministry of Construction, they particularly focus in enhancing energy efficiency of the building, and that is why they have the project funded by United Nations, and the purpose of the project is to analyze the energy efficiencies improvement in high-rise residential building in Vietnam. With the context of Vietnam is the electricity consumption of residential, commercial, and public services sector represent more than 40% of the total of energy use. And then they analyze different type of high-rise residential building in north of Vietnam, and the finding show that comparing to the building without any energy efficiencies enhancement versus the building that complying to the regulation of the government for energy efficiency, the saving is from 21 to 37% of the energy use. So with this result, it shows that the payback time is only 3.7 years average, because the extra cost can be as low as 0% to 5% only. So it's really about how you design the building, how you choose the building orientation and equipment. Not necessarily that you have to use a very expensive investment to enhance the energy efficiency of the building. So the extra cost is only from 0 to 5%. And it shows the payback time is 3.7 years on average. So this is a very encouraging result, and it's good for the sector and also good for the user, because the user also happy with the lower bill. Next, please. Yeah, so that is the event we did. That is what we share in the first event with the Climate Action Festival event. And then after that, we have another seminar for health and well-being, because health and well-being is one of the key global trends. And as a matter of fact, it is the most concerned by the developer and occupants. They may not care much about climate action or circularity yet, but everybody, they care a great deal for health and well-being. So when we introduce the concept of health and well-being, we have quite a good support from all the stakeholder players in the market. So next slide, please. And in this event, we introduced the health and well-being framework of BG2022 with the 6 principles, and we also share how can we contribute to this framework. And next slide. Next slide. Yeah, so here is example of research project done by BG2022, showing that the multi-comfort building, in this case is a school, how does a multi-comfort school enhance the health and well-being for children. And the research showing that with the enhancement of indoor air quality, for example, it reduced the 1.5 day per year reduction in school attendance, or daylight and lighting enhance that up to 60% of oral reading and fluency, or thermal comfort can enhance up to 4% of the correct answer in math test. And last but not least, noise and acoustic is also very important comfort in the building. That 10 decibel difference in the noise level can decrease the test result by 5.5 points. So these are the very important findings, and it shows people how important it is to have the multi-comfort in the buildings, and in some particular sector like school or hospital, it is even more critical than the other sector. And next, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So here we also show that how applying Lotus Green Scheme in building can enhance the health and comfort in the building. And as you can see here, in our total rating point for the Lotus projects, health and comfort accounted up to 40% of the point of the rating, and in which we have the prerequisite for indoor smoking or low emissions product. And we also have the category giving point for low emissions material, promoting the biophilic design or daylight, external view, thermal and acoustic comfort. So these are the categories that totally in alignment with the principles of promoting health and providing comfort in the health and well-being framework of BG2022. Next, please. Yeah, so our the coming up event, we are planning for the third global change, which is circularity. This is not out of the 3 global chains. This is the least concern for now in Vietnam. So today people talk a lot more about climate actions or health and well-being, and we don't see a lot of concern for circularity yet. But as a person who works in the building material industry, I know that this is a real threat for us because as you can see on the left-hand side chart, since 1970, we have extracted 3 times as much of a raw material every year. And for our material, you see the yellow part represent for the non-metallic mineral, which mainly sand, gravel, clays, which are mainly the material we use in our business, in a construction business. It has increased 5 times. So with our limited resources from the nature, 5 times of extraction increase. It doesn't really sustainable, and that is really the issue we need to tackle. And the circularity business, if we look at the flow of the natural resources as a natural flow, there are 3 ways we can address this problem. First is narrowing the loop, which means using less of material to produce the same amount of the building material. Or in another word, it is energy material efficiency. So here we can understand it as a material efficiency. The second approach is slowing the loop, meaning that we use the material longer. We prolong the uses of the material of the component and of the building. So instead of demolition, we think of reuse, upgrading, or remanufacture of the material and component. And the last point is closed loop, which means recycle. And to apply all 3 concepts in the building, then we can generate the flows, and we can maintain and sustain our lifestyle within the limited natural resources. So this is the concept that we are working on to build the next topic for circularity. So that to share with you. And yeah, basically that's it that we are doing here. So last slide. Thank you for listening, and my sharing is up to here. And if you want to contact me, there is a QR code for my contact details. And thank you very much for having me here, and have a good day and enjoy your sharing today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ham. So we'll proceed with the next presentation. We have Mr. CK Tang, CEO of Malaysia GBC. CK.
Okay, thank you. You have my slides? All right, thanks. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. And I just have a few slides, a short one, just to brief you on what is going on in Malaysia. Okay, next, please. Next slides. Okay, since 2009, in Malaysia, through our GPI certification program, we have certified over 24.5 million square meters. Okay, it's quite a big number. Next. This is equivalent to about 62 Petronas twin towers. Next. And in our GPI certified projects, we have identified that our buildings are actually consuming 50% less electricity than conventional buildings. Next, please. And it has reduced about approximately 1.3 million tons of CO2 per year through all these buildings that we have certified. Next, please. However, what we have achieved so far is only a drop in the oceans, because when we look at the national data, we are only contributing between 0.4 to 0.5% of Malaysia total CO2 emission. Next, please. So one of the things we look at is we questioned the perception is that the green building are expensive, but thanks to GBI and we have a tax incentive program in Malaysia, we were able to actually look at all the records and all the official submission of the actual additional cost for going green. And what we found that in average, the price tag of a GBI green certified building is less than 1% of construction costs. So green building are expensive is basically a perception, and we are trying to drive that message home in Malaysia. Next, please. So moving forward, okay. Moving forward, we are concentrating on carbon score. Okay, a Malaysia carbon score is basically a net zero 2. Next. Okay. Now, what is low carbon building? Basically, these are buildings that seek to reduce or eliminate GHG emissions, okay, from their ongoing operation and their construction as well, which is basically embodied energy. Next, please. What we try to do is to, with the carbon score, we hope that it will maximize energy efficiency in to reduce greenhouse gas emission. It will reduce emissions from the extraction and manufacturing of building materials, basically the embodied carbon on the building. And finally, increase the use of renewable energy for power generation, both on-site and off-site. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, so the Malaysian carbon score is basically going to be a label. Okay, these are the labels that that we have proposed initially. It's still being worked on, but just to give a little bit of background, we are actually doing a lot of events and projects on health and well-being, resources and circularity, green financing, and so on. But we just want to focus on this carbon score because the feedback we get from our industry indicates there's a very high level of interest in going net zero by 2050. And we believe it will be a driving force for existing buildings to get into a green building or sustainability in buildings. More importantly, we have identified that carbon offset, okay, although it's cheap, is basically a carbon tax for corporates and companies to go net zero. A carbon tax has no payback. You pay every year to feel good, basically. Although the carbon offset is relatively cheap, but you pay it annually. It's just a tax that you pay upon the energy you use. Meanwhile, renewable energy has a payback. In Malaysia, it is about 6 to 8 years if you put it on a rooftop. In Philippines, it should be lower, maybe 2 to 3 years due to your high electricity tariff. Therefore, there's no reason to hold back on renewable energy on photovoltaics on a building today. But more interestingly, energy efficiency payback is even better than renewable energy. In many cases, we identified that there is already a budget for retrofit of existing building. Okay, when the aircon system breaks down in a building, they will replace it regardless they have a budget or not. Okay, otherwise the building cannot be used. Same thing, when a light breaks down, they will replace it. Okay, regardless of whether they have a budget or not. Therefore, all building owners, regardless of whether they realize it or not, already have a budget for retrofitting. Energy efficiency in tropical climate can reduce the cost of retrofitting because features such as better glazing, more efficient lights, more efficient plug loads, energy efficient equipment, PCs, printers, everything else, actually reduces cooling load in our climate. So By practicing energy efficiency right, we are actually reducing the cost of retrofit in existing building. So in a well-planned net zero building, it is cheaper in capital cost and running costs than a business as usual practices on existing building. When they break down aircon, they just replace the same for the same. So they end up with the same size of equipment without downsizing it. And meanwhile, the improvement is actually quite low. Okay, so with the carbon score, we hope to underline this fact and use it to drive a sustainable movement in Malaysia building industry, and hopefully we can help to move it towards a greater height. All right, next please. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CK. So we'll proceed with the next presentation from Mr. Surendra, the Executive Director of GBC Indonesia.
Hello everyone, my name is Surendra from Green Building Council Indonesia. On this occasion, we will deliver a presentation according to the theme of World Green Building Week 2022, Building for Everyone. This is in accordance with the program run by GBC Indonesia, aimed at people, planet, and profit, including financial support and collaboration with various stakeholders. GBC Indonesia is founded in 2009 by 21 corporate founders and 50 co-founders from professionals in various fields in the building sectors. We have developed a green rating tool since 2011, which is used for green building certification and educate people through training programs and various workshops. Until now, green rating tool has been developed for various building functions, starting from office, retail, or shopping center, hospital, airport, warehouse, apartment, homes, data center, and neighborhood through various types of certification: green new building, green existing building, green indoor space, green home, green data center, green neighborhood, and also green net zero healthy. In addition, GBC Indonesia involved various parties and stakeholders to conduct promotional programs, events, seminar, conference, and also run membership program for corporates and associations. All of these programs are carried out throughout Indonesian area from west to east, covering an area of 1.9 million square kilometers with 10 representatives who voluntarily support the GBC Indonesia movement. In all the green rating tool, the principle of green building can be summarized into resource conservation on energy, water, land, and nature, resource efficiency on energy, water, space, and material, resource sharing through public facilities on transport, housing, walking, sharing facilities on transport, housing, walking, etc., and most importantly is human health. This principle must be applied through green to building life cycle to create high economic value. GBC Indonesia participated in World GBC Global Program. First is the Advancing Net Zero Program, began in 2019 through the implementation of Green Net Zero Healthy certification, Net Zero Healthy workshop, involving the government as one of the pilot project schools in DKI Jakarta, which are built to apply the net zero principles. Corporate engagement by involving the private sector as a net zero pilot project and support various net zero healthy promotion activities. Young generation education through various net zero healthy design competition. And net zero demonstration project with readiness recognition has been given for 5 schools, and currently in the process is one high-rise building and one more building with 100% renewable energy potential. In the BPFP program, or Better Places for People program, during the COVID pandemic, public awareness of the importance of air quality increased. For this reason, GBC Indonesia held several webinars in collaboration with hospital association in Indonesia, and also published several guidelines for managing healthy air in homes and schools. And currently, GBC Indonesia is finalizing the plan for sensor program with outdoor and indoor air sensor manufacturer. And regarding the resources and circularity global program, at the efficiency and sustainability level, several criteria have been applied in green rating tools. While in circularity level, we are currently formulating a database framework and embodied carbon calculation tool as part of our efforts to reduce the whole life carbon in a building. Therefore, in our presentation today, we will explain a brief about two things. First is embodied carbon reduction, and second is green building financing. The current condition is that there is no embodied carbon database for building materials in Indonesia. On the EBD website, there is only a few material originating from Indonesia. In addition, about how to calculate embodied carbon for building elements, there is no reference that is generally applicable in Indonesia. For this reason, GBC Indonesia and Life Cycle Institution or Life Cycle Analysis Institution in Indonesia have collaborated to formulate this in Indonesian context. As we know, the building life cycle, there are three main areas. Cradle to gate is a process during material extraction, transportation of raw material to factories and manufacturing. Cradle to site is the process of extracting raw material until the distribution of material to the site. Cradle to grave is the entire process to material waste management, excluding the use of energy and water. In accordance with the World GBC campaign, we will focus on upfront carbon, which is a module A1 until A5. Well, the scope that we will work on is on the main building elements, the foundation, structure, and facade. In general, following activities are currently being carried out by us. First is defined with the university, research institution, or contractor. First is define the sub-building element on its typology of building function by creating list of material and composition of building material in Indonesia, like substructure, foundation, ground bearing slab, basement, retaining walls, superstructure, beams on the slab, columns, external walls, internal walls, and also the partition, stairs and ramps, doors, window frame. And then based on typology building function, we can divide based on high-rise building for the office, apartment, hotel, mid-rise for the apartment, flats, shops, hospital, low-rise for the housing, wide span, for example, small exhibition hall, airport, warehouse, and maybe the data center. And then define a composition of raw material for each building element, and then environmental friendly and renewable material innovation. Database with SCA institution and university, embodied carbon database for raw material. We will generate database of embodied carbon from raw material forming building material like cement, aggregate, gravel, rock, sand, iron, steel, mild steel, red brick, light brick, limestone, glass, composite, aluminium, SCP. Yeah, embodied carbon database, carbon factor for each sub-building element, cradle to gate A1 until A3, focusing on the finished material like reinforced concrete, hollow iron, H-beam, U-beam, light brick wall, red brick wall, etc. And then also the carbon factor for transportation and construction, or module A4 until A5. Calculate with the professional and building owner. We will create the case study of embodied carbon calculation in a building, analysis and set benchmark. For example, what is the average embodied carbon for 100 square meter house with a common practice in Indonesia for homes. And as the output, life cycle assessment calculator for Indonesian region and design guideline to reduce the embodied carbon of building material in Indonesia. The second thing that we would like to share is the effort to encourage the green building from the financial sector. Paris Climate Agreement consists of three main components. First is mitigation to limit global temperature increases less than 2 degrees by achieving net zero emission in the middle of the century. And then about climate change adaptation by increasing resiliency. And what is also very important is climate finance or financial support for effort to minimize the climate change. Funding for it are available globally, but from what we have learned, very minimum is used in the Asian region, mostly are in Europe. For this reason, GBC Indonesia is trying to create a kind of green building financing scheme or ecosystem that can be applied in Indonesia. The question is, what should be the focus right now in the Indonesian context? So this is the current issue in Indonesia. Indonesia NDC commitment in 2030 reduce greenhouse gas emission by 29%, with the second largest carbon reduction target from energy sector, which is 11%. And if we talk about the energy sector, the biggest emission is from power plants, most of which still use the fossil fuel, such as coal, gas, and oil. This means that the use of electricity is the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emission. And if we look at the next table, the residential sector is the largest user of electrical energy. Based on this data, GBC Indonesia focusing on creating the financing scheme or ecosystem for green housing or residential sector. This is the financial ecosystem that we must build to promote the green housing. With the central is the BG certification, which is used as a basis by developer to build their housing and at the same time getting investor or green bonds on and green construction loan. Then the BG certification is used as a reference by the bank issuing the green mortgage. Thus, the benefits are not only obtained by the developers and bank and fund providers, but also users and home buyers. We are currently on progress to implement the scheme in several stages. It has been started by updating the flagship homes, which will become the underlying for every project that will receive the green funds, as well as being reference for funding providers to channel the fund. That's all what we can share today. I emphasize again that green building and decarbonization are very important and crucial in the current condition of all sectors, including housing and finance, as well as the related to the health issues. For this reason, GBC Indonesia continues to carry out the program according to our strategy, the ANZ, BPFP, and also RNC, resource and circularity. As a closing statement, I would like to inform that starting August to November, GBC Indonesia hosts several national and global activities, including event meeting in November. GBC Indonesia also hosts an international conference with the theme Decoding Decarbonization in Building Industry. And in this great opportunity, I would like also invite all the participants here to attend this event. We will update more detailed information on the following GBC Indonesia website and social media. Thank you, and see you again in the next few weeks.
Thank you very much, Rendro. So we'll proceed with the next presentation from Mr. M. Anand, Deputy Executive Indian GBC. Anand.
Good morning, friends. Hope you are able to see me and hear me. So very good morning from India. We would love to share with you all as a part of the Philippines GBC's month-long session on the India GBC, popularly known as IGBC's Green Building Initiatives for People, Planet, and Profit. Next slide, please. So the Indian Green Building Council, IGBC, was formed by CII in year 2001 with a vision of enabling a sustainable built environment for all. When we say all, it includes all the living beings on the planet Earth. In the process, we want India to become one of the global leaders in sustainable built environment by 2025. So we are also very proud to be a founding member of World Green Building Council since 2004. Next slide, please. So India has a rich heritage and a 10,000 years old history. So we have, when we talk about the buildings, building design and operation, we have our own ancient wisdom and traditions, but nevertheless, the 21st century has thrown open enormous amount of challenges to the stakeholders in India also. So we in India GBC would love to insist that green buildings are not new to India. Nevertheless, based on our ancient wisdom, tradition and knowledge, both the tradition and the modern technology should coexist. So that is how we started the Indian Green Building Council. Next slide, please. So this is our own India GBC's headquarters building in Hyderabad, which has earned India's first platinum rating in year 2003. And then this has been rated as the world's greenest building in year 2003. And we have a very unique public-private partnership since this building the plot has been given to us in 2001, wherein we galvanize all the stakeholders, the government, architects, manufacturers, engineers, consultants, students alike. So next slide, please. So though we have got the IGBC headquarters as the world's greenest building in year 2003, we have improved upon on many elements like the air conditioning, the lighting systems, the controls in the last 5 years, and we have installed for the first time in India 140 kilowatt of bifacial solar PV, the solar PV on both the sides on top of our roof, which has made our building as a net zero energy building. In fact, this has become a net positive building which generates enormous amount of energy apart from meeting our own building requirement. So this is the India GBC's headquarters building, which has become a net zero energy building. Next slide, please. So we in India GBC always believe in every building typology, the commercial, residential, the transit, education and industrial requirements are completely different. So that is the reason we have 30 different rating programs. The IGBC has 30 different IGBC green rating system to suit every building typology. So which focuses on resource conservation, enhancing the energy efficiency, as well as the better management of every single resources. Since 2017, we are working on net zero on a very aggressive way. The India's approach is very unique. We don't want to get into net zero carbon in one stroke, which is a Herculean task. So that is the reason we wanted to take it up by step approach. The IGBC's net zero approach is number one, approaching on the net zero energy to start with, then net zero water, net zero waste, then net zero carbon eventually. So that is what we call it as a four-pronged step-by-step approach towards the net zero India. Next slide, please. So by adopting IGBC's rating program for the last 20 years, many buildings have quantified the tangible and intangible benefits. For example, we have 1 million square feet of commercial office space, which has adopted India GBC, IGBC's rating program, is able to save almost 15,000 megawatt hours of electricity when compared with the conventional building. So the water savings is to the tune of 45,000 kiloliters per million square feet per annum when compared with the conventional building. So these are all the tangible benefits which a people or a project can envisage by adopting IGBC's rating program, apart from intangible benefits which IGBC focuses a lot in terms of enhancing the health and safety, enhancing the comfort levels through the daylight, the fresh air and the controls, which has a greater positive impact on physiological benefit, which enhances the comfort level, which in turn improves the productivity of occupants in every IGBC certified projects. So this is the benefit one can envisage when a project is adopting our India GBC's rating program, both tangible and intangible benefits. Next slide, please. So based on the Philippines GBC's overall theme of experience, circularity and pursue regeneration today, I would love to mention more about how are we enhancing the net zero waste. As you all heard from our own friends from various GBCs on energy and water, I don't want to repeat, which in turn IGBC's rating programs on net zero energy, water and carbon addresses. So for the next 10 minutes, I would love to focus more on how do we handle waste generation, waste management, and reduce the materials going into the landfill, which is aligned with the theme of Philippines GBC. Once again, I repeat, experience circularity, pursue regeneration today. In a way, it means the circular economy. Next slide, please. So IGBC rating programs, ever since we started, when it comes to the material efficiency, we address it in a 5-pronged approach. Number 1, how the buildings can be reused. Number 2, reuse of salvaged old materials. Number 3, source materials with very high recycled content. Number 4, try to source local and regional materials as far as concerned on the civil construction material. Fifth one is on how do we source very responsibly on the wood-based material. So to put it in a nutshell, all the IGBC rating programs, they encourage projects to use of resources to meet our today's demand without depriving the resources for the future generations. So that is the overarching theme of IGBC's all the rating programs. So I would love to share some few basic examples on these 5 elements. Next slide, please. First one is on the building reuse. We have many number of examples how a building, the old building, 20 years old, 60 years old buildings, which has been retrofitted without compromising on the safety and the security of the building and the building occupants, how they have renovated, deep renovated both the shell and the non-shell. So here is an example of a corporate office. When they went into the plot, they already had a 20-year-old building. So instead of bringing down the whole building down and constructing a brand new building, they have punctured all the walls and the interiors and made the office look a brand new office building, but they are able to retain the entire core and the shell. So this is what we call in India as a building reuse. Because when you constructed the building 20 or 30 years ago itself, this has used enormous amount of resources like manpower as well as the steel, concrete and other finite materials. So this has been encouraged by our IGBC's rating program. Next slide, please. Second is on reuse of materials. For example, the earlier India is having the largest railway network. So the earlier 40-50 years ago, all the railway tracks are all made out of the beautiful teak wood actually. The tracks and the entire railway tracks are all made about the wooden tracks to support the rails. Whereas in one of the brand new green building corporate office project in our national capital, the old abandoned railway sleepers has been taken because the railway sleepers are already exposed to enormous amount of worst ambient conditions and all the climatic conditions. So it has been well treated and it has been used as a second skin of the building. A 5-story tall multinational corporate office, they used the old abandoned railway sleepers, wooden sleepers. Extending the same in the same office, wherein all the pine wood packaging material which used to carry materials as well as machinery has been used as a false ceiling tile in the same office rather than going for a brand new false ceiling materials. So this is what we call it as a resource reuse. In fact, we in India, we never believe there is nothing called waste in the nature actually. There is nothing called waste in nature. Every element has some element of wherein it can add value to our projects or to our design and construction. Next slide, please. Same extending on this, the pine wood has been converted into a beautiful furnitures in the office cabins for the CFOs and CEOs. Can you believe it? On the right hand side, you are able to see even the paint cans. When you go to a project site, thousands of paint cans are all left abandoned after the project is completed. Here the paint can has been converted into a pigeonholes which carries the letters in an architectural office. Because architectural office, they deal with enormous amount of drawings and paintings and as well as on the papers. So here has been the paint cans has been given a new life as a pigeonhole in the to carry the letterbox. Next slide, please. So here again, we encourage materials which has like a bamboo, which is a nature's wonder grass, which grows couple of inches every day. How the bamboo can be used for the shuttering material. After the usage, it can be splitted, it can be treated, it can become a facade of a building also. So we call this as the rapidly renewable material is being also being encouraged by our rating program. Next slide, please. Third is on the material with usage with the more and more recycled content. So IGBC rating program encourages more materials with consumer waste as well as the industrial waste, giving a new life to the waste instead of landing up in the landfill. Next slide, please. So these are the typical materials with very high recycled content available in the Indian market, which is being encouraged by our rating programs, like the fly ash blocks, glasses with more and more recycled material, ceramic tiles, the medium density fiber wood, steel, as well as cement, to name a few. Next slides, please. Fourth is on usage of local and regional material. India is a large country which has enormous amount of locally available unique material. For example, here you are able to see the cladding of the walls are done by the stones, which are all very unique to that particular place. When you take the stone from the same regional area, the stones has been exposed to the same climatic conditions of the place for millions and millions of the years. So the stones and other regional materials are already used to that microclimate of that particular place. This is being encouraged by our rating program. Next slide, please. Wood-based materials. So as I said earlier, we encourage people to use more and more rapidly renewable materials like the bamboo or eucalyptus, the trees which grow much faster when compared with the conventional teak tree, which takes more than 25 years to grow. As well as we also encourage Forest Stewardship Council, FSC certified, PEFC certified materials for our interiors. Next slide, please. So the life cycle analysis. Here we encourage more and more usage of the circular economy, wherein you take enormous amount of raw materials, design it, manufacture or remanufacture it, distribute it, then use in our building. Once the building is being brought down, our interiors are brought down, how we can collect it and then recycle it. So that is what we call it as a life cycle thinking, which is in turn addresses the circular economy. So that is being encouraged by our IGBC's rating program by having an intelligent design, meaning incorporating environmental thinking from the very beginning of a process, not as an afterthought. Next slide, please. So the IGBC's definition on net zero waste is very unique, which inspires the whole lot of the community, the design community. We involved all of them also. So it says that net zero waste from the buildings and built environment is the one which eliminates, I repeat, which eliminates the diversion of waste being sent to landfills by adopting a multi-pronged approach. Number one, nature-centric design. Number two, reducing the debris during the construction. Number three, responsibly handling waste during operation. Number four, reusing the waste as much as possible. Number five, recycling the remaining waste. So this five-pronged approach will eliminate diversion of waste being sent to the landfills. Next slide, please. So this is the typical construction and demolition waste which are diverted from the landfills in an IGBC certified projects. The new construction projects, 10% of them are diverted. In the renovation, more, because we are having a better control, and we wanted to minimize the amount of waste generated from the renovation projects also. So these are the typical waste which is being sent upcycling or recycling rather than reaching out to the landfill. Next slide, please. So as we said, we wanted to generate less waste during the construction process. We go into a holistic and integrated design. Nevertheless, we'll end up in generating the waste. How we can segregate the construction waste and use it in a very effective way. For example, one of the plumbing lines which got not to be used in a new building has been taken as a lighting fixture in an interior designer. The old steel cut pieces, ropes, steel wires are all used as a staircase support system, or the broken bricks are used as a brickbat cover for the insulation of the roof. So these are the few examples how we give a new life to the construction waste. Next slide, please. Next slides. Anna, next slide. Yeah, handling the waste material during construction, construction to encourage reuse or recycle of materials, thereby avoiding the waste being sent to landfills. So this is how we segregate many things, many material which comes out during the construction project. Next slide, please. Next slide. So here I would love to mention a very interesting example in a conventional building where the waste generated, both organic and inorganic waste, are not handled in a not so great way. Whereas on the right hand side, you see in IGBC rated green buildings how organized they are to separate the dry, wet waste as well as the e-waste and add value, as well as in some of the plants, the entire organic waste has been converted into a fertilizer as well as used in the entire landscaping. So this is how in a green building, the solid waste management is being implemented in a very holistic and integrated way. Next slide, please. So the Indian Green Building Council has also launched the certification for the products. Though our rating program encourages an eco-friendly, environment-friendly, people-friendly design elements, architectural elements, engineering aspects, but how will I know a steel coming into my building project, a brick coming into a building project, or a carpet, paint, or adhesives? They are not only energy friendly, they are not only environment friendly, they should be people friendly also. So that is the reason India GBC has launched a rating program called Green Pro, which stands for Green Product Certification. So the green product certification of IGBC is based on a life cycle analysis which addresses on the product design, product performance, raw material used during the manufacturing process, and how energy efficient the manufacturing processes, how they are handling the waste management, and life cycle analysis, the product stewardship, and innovation in design, manufacturing, as well as at the end of the life. So for more details, I would request our friends to visit ciigreenpro.com for analyzing and having an access for 5,000 plus products in India. Civil construction materials, both active and passive products, are all certified under the Green Pro rating program. Next slide. So to sum it up, ladies and gents, ladies and friends, we would love to imbibe a cherry tree. For example, consider a cherry tree which fixes nitrogen, which provides oxygen, which desals water, which absorbs carbon dioxide, uses only the solar as an energy, and creates a much better microclimate and adapts to the environment where the tree is. So the buildings and the built environment also should adhere to the nature's best model, which uses only the natural energy as well as comes into complete circular economy or a repeated reuse, whatever we call it in the modern jargon. So the next slide, please. So to sum it up, ladies and gentlemen, the focus is now shifting on reducing the negative impact on the environment by adopting sustainable materials and building materials. Number two, we wanted to facilitate a life cycle thinking, wherein the India's proverb says that there is nothing called waste in our nature. So there is nothing called waste even in the buildings and the built environment also. The circular economy can help us to design to last as well as optimize the cycle of reassembling and upcycling it, and then makes it more and more easier for us to reuse. So we in IGBC, all our 30 rating program encourages the resource conservation, effective management, and enhanced energy efficiency, which benefits the people first, the planet, and the bottom line, which is nothing but the profit. So the next slide. So the places where we live, learn, work, shop, play, and travel, all of them can go green by adopting our rating programs. So as the architect Buckminster Fuller said, the best way to predict the future is to design it. So together we can all design with our IG net zero or the circular economy elements, which has been mentioned in all our rating programs across the world. So the next slide, please. So to sum it up, our own father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhiji of India, mentioned there is enough material on earth for everybody's need, but not for everybody's greed. I repeat, there is enough on earth for everybody's need, but not for everybody's greed. As Mahatma Gandhiji said, which encompasses, which articulates and inspires each one of us to adopt a very minimalistic and use the resources very effectively in our buildings and built environment. Thank you, Philippines GBC, for giving us a wonderful opportunity to share what we in India are doing with respect to the green and the net zero buildings, more so on the circular economy or the effective waste management systems. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Anand. So we'll proceed with the next presentation from Mr. Yasushi Kinoshita, co-chairperson of the Green Building Japan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yasushi Kinoshita, co-chairperson of Green Building Japan. First of all, congratulations on your success in holding Building Green Conference 2022. Also, it is a great honor and privilege to have an opportunity to present Green Building Japan's activities at Episode 4, along with our allies at World GBC APAC region. So please let me share my presentation with you. Green Building Japan was established in February 2013 by 5 founding members. They envision to promote green building initiatives in Japan through collaboration with US Green Building Council. Green Building Japan became the member of LEED International Roundtable and has been promoting LEED in Japan through supporting regional ACP proposal. After 9 years since foundation, GBJ is now supported by 75 corporate members, including global manufacturers and top-tier general contractors, and over 130 individual members. As the leading nonprofit organization in Japan, focusing on sustainability in built environment. Green Building Japan joined World Green Building Council as affiliated partner in 2022. Green Building Japan is a nonprofit organization fully operated and managed by volunteers. GBJ is trying to be a forum connecting people interested in promoting sustainable built environment. GBJ is the only organization of LEED professionals and users in Japan, working with the US Green Building Council on LEED rating system. Please let me explain our difference from other World GBC members. The GBJ is not an organization representing Japanese local green building rating system, such as CASB and DBJ Green Building Rating. Instead, GBJ has been promoting sustainable built environment in Japan through advancing LEED, SITES, ARC, and WELL. Therefore, GBJ has joined World GBC as affiliate partners, not the full membership. Next, I would like to explain our actions to promote more sustainable and greener built environment in Japan. GBJ is providing the most comprehensive LEED-related information archive in Japanese at our website for free. The information available at our website is ranging from the basic of LEED certification system, detail of credits with video clip explanation, links to LEED-related websites, and guidance for LEED AP examination, which are all in Japanese. It is not an exaggeration that if someone in Japan would like to learn about the LEED, the first proposal site they will stop by is Green Building Japan's website. Because the language barrier is a big hurdle for Japanese practitioners to learn advanced knowledge in green building rating system, such as LEED, SITES, and WELL. We think creating green building related information archive in our own native language, Japanese, has significantly helped the promotion of sustainable built environment in Japan. Next one is LEED Material Library. By collaborating with Spot of UL, GBJ provides lead material library, which lists products and materials provided by GBJ corporate members at our website. Through this library, GBJ is providing easier access to sustainable products and material for Japanese built environment professionals. The next one is GBJ seminars. GBJ has held seminars promoting green buildings and sustainability since its foundation. And the total number of seminars reached to 70 as of August 2022. Since the pandemic of COVID-19, all the GBJ seminars became online and now can be joined from anywhere. Topics of seminars are ranging from the basic of sustainability, green building, ESG investment, and project site tour, through advanced content such as technical details of LEED rating system, the latest trend of ESG disclosure, municipal government's actions towards zero carbon, and safety and resilience under COVID-19 pandemic. All the materials and the video of seminars are available online after the seminars for future references. Just like Building Green Conference 2022, GBJ has held annual symposium since its foundation. GBJ has invited outside speakers such as Governor of Tokyo, professors at major Japanese universities, professionals of sustainability-related businesses, and promoted sustainable built environment. GBJ will hold GBJ Symposium 2022 online on November 25, 2022, with US Green Building Council as co-sponsor. The main theme for 2022 is Green Building Market, we are naturing together, toward further value enhancement and resolution for social issues. The next one is sustainable education. GBJ has held its report contest for students such as high schools, universities, and graduate schools, called GBJ Student Opinion Challenge, every year to promote sustainable education. GBJ members review reports submitted by students and give an award to excellent reports. Recipients of awards have established Green Building Japan's chapter for students called GBJ Student Youth and actively involved in GBJ's activities and co-worked with other organizations for young people to promote sustainable built environment. GBJ Student Youth has introduced ARC School to several high schools and universities and opened doors of opportunity for sustainable education. I have explained our actions so far, and at the end of this presentation, I would like to touch on our future focus. First of all, we'd like to take deep dive into corporate Japan. In addition to the existing corporate members, GBJ would like to expand its reach to corporate real estate, CRE, and institutional investors via corporate membership. Involvement of CRE and institutional investor is instrumental to improve sustainability of existing real estate portfolio so that we can achieve carbon neutral in 2050. The second one is collaboration with municipal governments and educational institutions. We believe this collaboration will achieve more sustainable and resilient communities and enhance sustainable education for future generations. We are thrilled to work with all of you to achieve more sustainable and greener built environment globally. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Yasuchi. So we'll proceed with our last presentation for this morning from Mr. Jeff Boatman, Head of Collaboration and Membership of GBC Australia.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Oatman. I'm the head of collaboration and membership at the Green Building Council of Australia, and it is really great to be here speaking to you with the Philippine Green Building Council. We've been very good friends with the Philippine GBC for a very long time, so it's really wonderful to be here, and I want to welcome all of you here this morning. For my brief talk here, I'm going to look at and talk about some of the really interesting things that are happening that we're finding in Australia, looking at providing positive outcomes for people, planet, and profit. And before I do that, I thought it would be worth just reflecting very briefly. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Green Building Council of Australia, we've been around. This is actually our 20-year anniversary this year. We came off the back of the Sydney Olympics, and this slide here is a picture of the Sydney Olympic Park, and this is back in the 2000 Olympics. The Sydney Olympics was recognized as the world's first Green Olympics. And around that time, there was a lot of excitement and interest around sustainable buildings, but there was no common language for what a green building was. And that's really when the GBCA started back then. So we came off the back of the Sydney Olympics, and we've been working very, very hard and for a very long time since there to really transition the built environment to more sustainable outcomes. And when people ask what we do, the purpose of the GBCA is to lead the sustainable transformation of the built environment. And we do this across very broadly 4 key areas. We rate, we educate, we advocate, and we collaborate. And when we think about green building programs that provide positive outcomes for people, planet, and profit, these are effectively enabled across these key areas. A big part of the work that the GBCA does is taking these global sustainability megatrends and then distilling them down to the local level and then incorporating them into these 4 areas of influence across the GBCA. And so some of you may be familiar with this. This is a slide from the World Green Building Council. They have these 3 common themes of climate action, resources and circularity or circular economy, and health and well-being. And this is embedded into the work that we do. And we look at them at the local level and how we can respond to them. You can see below, we've got the different areas that we really try to focus and break down into these further elements and integrate that into the work that we do. Of course, it goes without saying, and as the head of collaboration and membership, that members really are at the heart of the work that we do at the GBCA. It's really membership and our members that are involved in the work that we do that pushes the GBCA to really drive uptakes for the product and services that we do. And without them, we really can't drive scale at change. So members are absolutely key. We're lucky to have some of the most leading organizations in Australia across the property sector to implement our programs or get involved in the work that we do, champion our policy work to government, or attend our activities and events. We also have a number of long-term relationships with almost half of our member base. Almost half of them have been with us for over 10 years. So we've got a really strong core of influencers who've been with us for a long time and support the work that we do. And as a result, we've managed to have a lot of attraction in the work that we've been doing over the past 20 years. One of the key green building programs providing positive outcomes for people, planet, and profit comes directly from our education and our events team. We have all sorts of training and development activities each year, ranging from our annual conference, which we call Transform. This is effectively a 2-day in-person and 2-week online global leadership conference on sustainability in the property sector. We also have what we call Green Building Day, which is more of a green building practitioners course. And this is effectively run for 1 day, but we run it in different cities across the country. And we also have, especially off the back of COVID, we have a whole bunch of online web-based on-demand activities and seminars that range from all sorts of different topics around around sustainable property. So you can see we have a continuing professional development program. We have 1,300 plus that are enrolled in that. This is just over the last year. We've had over almost 10,000 bookings into our courses and events, which is absolutely amazing, and it's just growing exponentially, which is amazing. And we also have over 1,000 future green leaders enrolled in our program. So we've got a really strong base of leaders that are going to continue to push forward and continue to drive the work that we do in the built environment into the future. Probably the most single influential green building program that we have that's got the largest and broadest impact is through Green Star, which is Australia's version of the BERDE rating system in the Philippines. It's a holistic rating system covering everything from the design and the construction of new buildings to master plan precincts to the operation of buildings and everything in between. And we've also this year excitingly launched a standard for homes, which we expect will have a lot of impact as awareness grows. To date, it's really hard to, I was actually chatting with our head of research the other day. We have over 3,500 certified projects and counting, and it's hard to keep track because every day there's more and more projects certified, which is amazing. And since the Paris Climate Agreement, we've been looking to upgrade the standard through a significant program of works, which we call our Future Focus program, and it's effectively updating the suite of rating tools that we have to make sure they're fit for purpose for the critical decade ahead of us. And some of the key changes that Green Star, Green Star are providing positive outcomes for people, planet, and profit include a number of things. One of the really big ones is we're working to transform the supply chain. We're looking closer at the supply chain and reconsidering how products are recognized within the Green Star rating system. And there's a number of reasons for this. We recognize that building materials the whole sector accounts for over 8% of Australia's emissions. So upgrading Green Star to focus more closely on how products fit within the buildings and the rating system and how they contribute to a circular economy is key. And for the 20% of the Green Building Council of Australia members that are product manufacturers, this is something that they can actively contribute to, and it's been a really great value add for members looking to be more involved. We've also updated the rating tool to respond to the Paris Climate Agreement. And so we've helped, as part of this, we say, great, we want to go to net zero. How do we actually do this? So part of it, we've actually mapped out what we define as a net zero building. And we look at a net zero building and say it's one that's fossil fuel free, powered by renewables. It's designed to be highly efficient. It's built with lower upfront carbon emissions, so there's an embodied carbon reduction target. And then from that point, and only that point, there's an offsetting, but offsetting can only be done with nature. So this has been quite helpful for a lot of our members who are interested. They want to get involved with this. They've got requirements to get to net zero. They don't know how to do it, so we're helping map out the way to do this, and this has been a significant step change. We've also effectively entirely redeveloped the rating tool from the ground up, and we're doing this with all our rating tools. So we've redefined the actual rating tool itself, and there's a number of reasons for this. One, the rating tool has been in existence for almost 20 years, and while it's iterated over time, we thought it's time to really make sure that it represents what we need, not just for now, but over the next decade ahead of us. And the way we look at this now is we want people to look at a Green Star building, and when they think of one that is a healthy, resilient, and positive place for people and nature, built responsibly and showcasing leadership. So we spent a lot of time consulting with industry to get this right, and we feel we have the right mix of everything that's needed to achieve that. Given our many users have increasing stringency on reporting, and I'm sure your members and the people in the room listening have a similar situation they're finding, we've looked to see how we can align the rating system itself to really big frameworks, whether it's GRES or the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We've actually mapped each of the credits against a UN SDG, for example, in this case. And the idea is that when you get a Green Star rating, you can also then directly translate that to what maybe your stakeholders are requiring, whether it's the UN Sustainable Development Goals, GRESB, or whatever. So this is an example of how we're mapping this and aligning this so that you don't just get a Green Star building, but you get a certified building. And here's how it's actually contributing to these broader global goals. If you're interested in learning more about this, you can have a look online at our annual report. This maps out all the stats and figures which have happened over the past year. So there's all sorts of information. Just Google it, you can find it, and that's one that's all sorts of information in there for you. The other program that we're finding that's really helping drive positive outcomes for people, planet, and profit is one from the World Green Building Council. This is one that we are very excited about, and this is the Global Net Zero Carbon Buildings Commitment. If you're not familiar, it's a commitment that challenges leaders to decarbonize their new and existing buildings by 2030. And if I'm not mistaken, Arthurland is one of the signatories, which is amazing. And it's really great that we've got PHILGBC signatories on board, and we look forward to seeing you grow that number. We're very proud to have some of the earliest signatories and that our list keeps growing. When we look at the number of signatories that we have, we've got 34. We're speaking to a number of other signatories who are involved with this. And this is really important because these are the leaders who are really working in our industry to signal to the market that change is happening and it needs to happen. We can't wait until 2050 to get to net zero. We want to push that much earlier in the piece. And of course, this kind of change isn't really easy, and you need a lot of people with a really strong focus involved with this. So we're working to support our members to make sure that that we're helping them, providing them critical information along the way. As an example, one of the ways we're doing this is by providing high quality technical support where possible to help assist and set the pathways forward. So this is an example of one of the documents we've recently developed. It's a practical guide to electrification for new buildings. And this is effectively a how-to guide to actually do exactly what it says. We're also about to release a practical guide to electrification for existing buildings, which is really exciting because that's going to apply to the 99% of the buildings you see when you look out the window. So it's a huge opportunity for our industry to jump on board and really change things significantly. So stay tuned. That's coming out very soon. We also have lots and lots of thought leadership pieces that support the work that we do. And I encourage all of you who are interested to jump on our website, have a look at this, have a look at the documents, whether it's the climate positive roadmap for the built environment that we developed specifically for Australia, or whether it's looking at upfront carbon, the embodied carbon and embodied energy in Australia's buildings. Again, it's very Australian specific, but it'll give you a flavor of how we're approaching the problem. And we happily encourage you to get involved as well and take a look at that, download the discussion paper and see what you think, because there's a lot of interesting information on there that may be able to help you. And at that, I will stop there. Thank you very much. I hope you all have a fantastic conference and looking forward to speaking to you all. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And once again, thank you to all of our speakers. May I invite everyone to turn on your cameras and join me in this discussion. As mentioned earlier, we invited everyone to submit their questions, but I think in the pursuit of time, we may only be able to ask questions, one question for each of our leaders here with us online. And maybe if you allow me, let me focus on how you engage your industry in adopting all of these different tools and programs that you've shared, and of course, the targets and objectives for your respective countries. Let me start with Yvonne. Yvonne, you mentioned earlier in your presentation your current 80-80-80 targets for the Singapore objectives. What are your current outlook in terms of this target? And among the measures that you mentioned, what has been the most effective in ensuring that your constituents will be able to reach this target?
Thanks, Mario, for for the question. I think Singapore is maybe quite unique because our industry is a bit more uniform. The country is small. So I think the greatest lever that we have is probably legislation. Yeah, so buildings since 2008 have to meet a certain level of environmental sustainability performance levels. So that has been very effective in ensuring that every single building and almost all the environment professionals in Singapore would have some level of knowledge about building green. Yeah, and it also helps, I think, that we have many companies here who are also global players, and they have investor pressures, so they also need to be even further in terms of their targets compared to whatever is legislated in Singapore. So I think that combination of having market leaders and having legislation to support the overall base in the industry, that has been very, very useful in pushing things forward in Singapore.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Maybe going to the opposite end of the scale in terms of the scale of the jurisdiction of the country. Anand, maybe I can go to you in terms of the uptake of the different tools that you mentioned, and particularly maybe you'd like to talk about net zero waste. How has it been in engaging your industry, especially looking at the scale of the industry? Do you ensure the adoption of circularity principles with their new and existing buildings? Anand?
Yeah. Once again, pleasure meeting you all. Once again, the greetings from India. The sessions in the world, we have all the world's experts on the panel. So as far as the net zero elements are coming, we adopt a multi-pronged approach in order to reach out to the stakeholders. So India being a slightly larger country, we have 30 local chapters led by the leading architects and developers who in turn engage with the local government, because the building subject, as you are aware, it is a local subject. So whether the municipalities, the mayors, the state governments, they decide. So these 29 chapters across the country are very important for us to reach out locally to make the rules more impactful, make our IGBC rating program very handy, which they are able to adopt and then take it forward, number one. Number two, as we said earlier, the rating program of the green product certification has helped us a lot in engaging the material manufacturers, the contractors who play a vital role, as well as the designers and the team members who handle the construction waste and demolition waste. So we are through our IGBC's net zero waste from the buildings and built environment, with IGBC's Green Pro certification, with the local chapters are in multi-pronged approach, year-long approach in sensitizing the people. We are able to galvanize all of them and make our activities more impactful on ground. Still a long way to go. To be more honest with you, we have only touched upon only 10 to 20% of our targeted objective when it comes to the net zero waste. So still a long way to go, but through the multi-pronged approach on sensitizing people, showcasing on the various case studies which demystify them. I think that is the biggest learning what we got in the last 5 years, because many people think that there are no other alternate way of handling a waste or the approach towards net zero energy or water. When we share the 10 or 20 odd projects which has been certified to them, it completely demystifies. There is a consultant, there is a ways of doing it, there is a technology available in abundance. If they feel it, they will imbibe, they will embrace it.
Thank you very much, Anand. It's very interesting that you mentioned the local approach and going to Yasushi on your actions on localizing resources and converting materials into your native language to ensure that your constituents are able to access resources for their green building projects. What has been maybe a challenge in your industry in the adoption of these tools, and how were you able to overcome that challenge, aside from, of course, the language barrier?
Thank you, Mario. We have an existing culture for office buildings. The largest obstacle which we faced the early stage of green building in Japan to promote LEED rating system in Japan is smoking, tobacco. Obviously, the green building is ideal situation is total non-smoking in any of the built environment. Now, having said that, in Japanese office cultures, smoking was relatively, okay for many years, and buildings were built, and also the corporate culture was established like that way. And suddenly we are trying to bring in, okay, no smoking at all. But instead, government was introducing a very interesting approach: no smoking on the street. So people lost the place to smoke because the building owners are trying to make the building non-smoking, and you are not allowed to smoke on the street. So we had a really big difficulties to solve that. So we talked with the U.S. Green Building Council and tried to create sort of the alternative path to apply for LEED ratings. So we created a special research team for that, and brought in very high spec negative pressure smoking room facilities, etc. So now the major developers have started feeling comfortable to try to be more green and approach to the LEED rating system with such a exempted smoking facilities without troubling any other built environment in the same building. So that is the one example.
Thank you very much, Sushi. Talking about the adoption or even the development of tools, on the opposite end from adopting an existing tool, Surrender, you mentioned a lot of the programs that you are doing are focused on your own tool, which is Greenship. And you mentioned you are providing even financial support or funding support programs for the development of tools. So how were you able to engage your government in connecting all of these programs around the Greenship tool? Surrender?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mario. Again, thank you for this opportunity to talk here in the conference. Yeah, actually, to involve the government is one of our challenging issue now, because they usually have their own program already. So that's why we are trying to align with their program. So currently, they already approved to build the small team, which is consists of the GBC Indonesia, and then the Ministry of Public Works, and then the one of the public bank, and one of the institution of the finding resource for the housing. So it's the small team already formed, and it's already legitimate by the government. So currently we are trying continue to have several meeting to develop this ecosystem that I already mentioned earlier, but still in the early stage. Actually, there are several pilot projects already, but using the existing tools, like we have many tools for to evaluate the housing aside of the Greenship. So we already assigned several housing using this tool, and another housing using this tool. So, and then at the end we will evaluate all of them, and then what is the result, and then is it really impactful for to fund the project. So we are in progress on that. And actually the challenge is not only related to the government issue, but we also have another challenge, like how to be consistent and how to be to create innovation in our activities. So in this digital era, where all aspects have been made easier with the various type of the application and also software, GBC Indonesia also already start the completely the digitalization by completely changing the website, by integrating the payment process, like the donation process payment in our website. So and another digitalization program is we are currently also releasing the net zero calculation tools. So this tool will be used for the Greenship Net Zero Healthy certification and also another Greenship certification, so that the green building certification can be affordable for all building, even the low affordable housing, so low income housing. So we are in process to create this tool, and in the short term we will release this tool. And then the second challenging is the consistency. We need to consistent to campaign the importance of the green building, not only for the environment but also consistent for the people itself. So that's why we are collaborating with various parties like the government, as I mentioned earlier, and also with the universities and professional association. Last 2 months, actually we already declared the net zero movement with 7 or 10 association, professional association, and then many other private sector corporate, something like that. So the collaboration also another thing that will push us to be consistent in our movement. So we will continue to turn this challenge into the opportunities, so that the implementation of green building in Indonesia is increasing, but also getting better on the quality, and also getting faster and easier by the digitalization program. So that's That's our challenge and our engagement with the government. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you very much, Surendro. You mentioned innovation and the tools that you've provided. CK, you introduced with us earlier your new tool for carbon and for net zero. And you mentioned that there is an interest from the industry already in developing net zero in the country. So how are you then maximizing that interest from your industry? How are you engaging them, and even in pushing them to use the tools that you are providing to the industry?
Okay. Well, we are still developing the tool at the moment. I'm sure everyone will agree that a tool such as this, there's a lot of disagreement and how it should be perfected, so or get it as good as possible. So we are still we are on the verge of coming to a conclusion and launching it very soon. Actually, it's just the next month, and the industry engagement has been quite active from the industry, from the banking sector, from the building sectors. There's been actually engaging with Malaysia GBC and on net zero, going net zero. So how they can contribute, how they can be part of this net zero movement, so that they can actually take credit on the reduction of net zero for their own organization. So the scope 3 of the GHG protocol sort of push all these organizations to try to find ways to get involved and to get themselves as part of the movement, so that they can take credits for the carbon reductions. So that's where we are in. That's why we recognize in Malaysia this organization are approaching us, and we are under pressure to get it up and operating, so that everyone will have a transparent scoring system on carbon emission in buildings.
So we look forward to the release of your new tools, CK. Hang, let me go to you for in terms of existing tools with alignment already with existing global programs on ANZ and circularity. What is your current outlook in the adoption of carbon reduction measures? And you mentioned earlier in your presentation that all of these are already aligned in terms of circularity as well. What is your current outlook in the adoption in Vietnam of these measures? I think you're still on mute.
Thank you for the question. Can you hear me now? I hope you can hear me now. Okay, so thanks again for having me here, and I really admire the effort of Philippine GBCs to organize this kind of events. I learned a lot from our counterparts from other countries, so it's a great opportunity for us to learn and share from each other and talk about the challenge that we have in Vietnam for the decarbonization of the sector. It is really a long journey to go for us, and to start with, I think in the early presentation from Joy, she had shared that the common issues that we all share in our region is the lack of mandatory requirement from the government, the definition of what does it mean by net zero carbon, and how do we measure the net zero carbon or energy efficiency in the building. So this is I see as a biggest challenge that we face today in Vietnam. As I share this movement of the government, starting to earn the acceleration, but still in the infant stage, and everybody still look at the Ministry of Construction, the government, to see the regulation, the framework, the definition to start to measure and benchmark with. And we are working together alongside with them. We're sharing our expertise, and we are going to have like a training session to address the technical issues. And we are also promoting quite hard to have the benchmarks and the measure system in place, because only when we have a very clear definition and the benchmark, then the whole market we can align to that. So I see that is the biggest challenge, and as well as the action that we need to focus today to address the net zero carbon initiative. And then after that, of course, I'm only talking about energy efficiency for the building regulation for the time being. And the next step, we will have to address the embodied carbon, which is the life cycle assessment for the material, for the components, and for the whole building, or in the sector. So these are a lot of work to be done, and I hear from other countries, we seem to we all see the objective where we want to be, but we all seem to really have to walk through a long and challenge journey. So hopefully that we can share and learn together in this journey. Thanks again.
Thank you, Hang. In terms of collaboration, Jeff, can I go to you? What has been a key action that ensures that your members and the rest of the industry are continuing to pursue higher performance standards? You're introducing a new definition for Green Star, you have new tools for net zero. How are you engaging your members and to ensure that they continue to pursue higher performance standards?
Thank you very much for the question, Mario, and what a cracker of a question it is. That's a great one. First, I'd just like to say thank you very much again for having me here. It's really great, and seeing all of my fellow collaborators here. The last time I think we were in person was actually in Cebu in the Philippines, and it was amazing. And then COVID hit, and then it all got canceled from there. So hopefully we'll do this before too long again. But to your question on what's been happening from a collaboration point of view and how we're getting industry involved, I think probably the biggest lesson that we've learned over the years is really to ask and also to listen and really take the feedback on board. We're quite lucky in Australia. In some ways, we're unlucky that we don't have amazing government support. So a lot of the work that happens and pushing standards forwards is not coming from government, but it's coming from industry pushing forward. So industry leads and government typically follows in Australia, which is very different. But from us, we've spent a lot of time working with industry, listening to them and taking their feedback on board. And as an example, I was speaking to someone just this morning about this. When we were looking at the new definition of Green Star, one of the questions we asked was, should Green Star respond to the Paris Agreement? And this was early consultation, but we put our consultation paper out, and that was one of the questions. And we didn't say how we're going to do it, if the answer is yes or no, but just should it respond to the Paris Agreement, yes or no? And the answer was yes, it absolutely should. And then we went, oh my gosh, that's actually really, really significant. And industry said, no, we have to do it. And we looked at the current version of Green Star and then the next version of Green Star, and we said there's going to be a significant change. But we had faith in our industry that, okay, if that's what you want and you're ready for it, fine, we'll give it to you. So we spent a lot of time working with that. And the requirements are, I don't want to say they're very, very hard, but it's definitely a step up, a significant step up. And the response has been, that's great, that's exactly what we need. So I think part of this is really trying to make sure that we listen to, we hear our industry, and also we have a huge role, and I think all the GBCs around the region, around the world have a huge role of bringing industry together and bringing government partners together and kind of getting everyone in the same room and getting different thoughts and feedback. When we were looking at, for example, how you define a net zero building, if you have, a dozen people in the room and you say, what's your definition? And you start with the first person, you go around the room, you get, different definitions from everybody. And then when you go to the very first person again, that person has a new definition. So, but it's important. You need to flesh this stuff out. You need to argue it. You need to debate it. And then when you have that degree of consensus and understanding from across the room, you get a lot more buy-in. So I suppose that's a kind of a long-winded way of saying, listen to your members, listen to your industry, and respond to them as best you can.
Thank you, Jeff. In terms of buy-in, Carrie, in terms of engaging your stakeholders and increasing the buy-in, especially with existing roadmaps for Hong Kong, you mentioned your Hong Kong roadmap. It is aligned with your A and Z goals for Hong Kong, and of course your upcoming living document on your climate change framework. How are you ensuring the buy-in of your stakeholders in Hong Kong so that the projects that they pursue are aligned with your objectives for the Hong Kong GBC?
Yes, thank you. I have to say that the Hong Kong Green Council, do not have the force to really drive everyone to move forward. What I've been looking at, well, what are really the main driving forces to the industry in Hong Kong? I find that is really the reporting and disclosure. Next year, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange is mandating all listed companies to disclose their ESG performance, and also the climate risk assessment in financial terms, that TCFD. Now, I can see there's really a great drive. If you are a professional or subsidiary development, come to Hong Kong, there's a lot of jobs. All the developers, all the corporates, they are now engaging ST personals to work for them. So I think this is really a big drive. The second driver is really the investors. All the investors, they are now asking all their investment portfolios to prove their climate risk management. So therefore the industry has a lot of drivers to drive them forward. Not really the government, but all these disclosure, reporting, investors, this are really driving them forward. So therefore, it really comes back to us that the industry is asking GBC, well, how can we help them to do this reporting? So this climate change framework is really a response to the industry's need to, well, if they go to carbon zero, well, what are really the definitions? Well, what are really the baseline? What is the database on all these sort of things? So I would say that, well, it's really a collective of this external driving force that is really driving them. So for now, as I said earlier, we are now working on a target setting tools. 20 buildings from different developers, they come to us that they want to try out this target setting calculator. So therefore, in Hong Kong, a lot of developers is really searching for help from us to help them to go forward, and also solutions as well. We are working very, very closely with the government. Well, actually, the government is very anxiously working with us to promote building energy efficiency. So this is what we are tying up with the industry in Hong Kong.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Joy, let me get to you. I think in terms of the challenge in the region, as mentioned by Jeff and Carrie, the definitions of net zero really is varying. And with the release of the net zero readiness framework, how can they participate in the use of the net zero readiness framework?
Thank you, Mario, for this question. So first of all, I really wanted to thank Philippine GBC to bring everyone together virtually. So there are a lot of sharings. I'm sure there are a lot of learnings as well. So first of all, I really suggest and also encourage all the companies to support your local Green Building Council. So first of all, with familiarity with your own work, so support and deeply involved in the work of the local Green Building Council is definitely the most important step for a company to be more involved in the regional, in the sustainability industry. So when the company is expanding their network into the regional level, so we really wanted to encourage those leading organizations to step forward and to join us at the regional level. So you can see that all the GBCs belong to a regional network. So we have so much of harmony and also this collaboration together. So in this way that we have 3 layers of work involved with organizations. So first of all, they can focus on one project, like say the development of net zero readiness framework. So we call those partners as net zero collaborators. And we're also going to roll out the knowledge partners. Like we are looking for one representative from each of this industry to really share the collective voice of a regional network. And we also hope to work with the leading organizations as our regional partner to bring the program forward and also heavily participate in the development of the GBC work. So again, it's one united network together. So we really hope to tap from your expertise from the organization to support everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joy. And I think with that, we can close this discussion. Thank you once again to all of our speakers, Ms. Joy Guy, Dr. Kerry Chan, Ms. Yvonne So, Ms. Hang Fan, Mr. C.P. Tang, Mr. Surendro, Ms. M. Anand, Mr. Yasushi Kinoshita, and Mr. Jeff Oatman. Thank you once again for participating in this episode and with the Building Green 2022 and for opening with the Philippines the World Green Building Week 2022. Thank you once again, and thank you very much for participating in this discussion.
Thank you.
So thank you for all of our participants. If you have further questions for our speakers, unfortunately, we do have a limited time for these discussions. You may contact the PHILGBC National Secretariat at BG2022 at philgbc.org. So we can coordinate with them even after the events for these questions of yours. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us for episode 4, The World. So this afternoon, episode 5, The Women in Green Building, will feature inspiring women from the private and public sectors of the building industry and understand the unique style and learn from the key role they play in pursuing and achieving the sustainability goals of their organizations. Tomorrow, episode 6, the Green Building Marketplace, will feature companies at the forefront of providing the latest green building technologies and practices available in the market that can help you in pursuing your green building projects. So you may scan the QR codes for each episode to register or contact the PHILGBC National Secretariat in BG2022 at philgbc.org for more information. So to officially close this episode, we have Mr. Wena Ramos, Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees of the PHILGBC and Principal of Ecotectonica. Ramos.
Thank you very much, Mario. Good morning. Thank you to all our participants of episode 4, The World, as part of the Building Green Conference 2022. Thank you to all our speakers for sharing your time and insight for our continuous learnings from the World GBC and GBCs present today. We look forward to having you again. Ms. Joy Guy from World GBC, Dr. Carrie Chan from the Hong Kong GBC, Ms. Yvonne So from the Singapore GBC, Ms. Hang Fan from the Vietnam GBC, Mr. C.K. Tang from the Malaysia GBC, Mr. Surendro from GBC Indonesia, Mr. M. Anand from the Indian GBC, Mr. Yasushi Kinoshita from the Green Building Japan, Mr. Jeff Oatman from the GBC Australia. This episode highlighted our global shared goals and circularity principles as we strengthen our actions for low carbon, highly resilient, and healthier sustainable built environment. We hope this episode further inspires you to lead in developing your net zero carbon, healthy and green building projects using our comprehensive tools here in the country. Thank you to our BG 2022 sponsors and your sustained support. Gold Strategic Partner NEO,
Aboitiz Infracapital Economic Estates, City Homes Builders and Development Inc. Silver Strategic Partner, we have World Vision Corporation, Daikin Air Conditioning Philippines Inc., First Balfour Inc. And to our bros in strategic partner, we have Monocrete Construction Philippines Inc., Botanica Nature Residences, PHILGBC City, FPD Asia, AGC Asia Pacific Private Limited, Datem Incorporated. And as mentioned earlier, please join us this afternoon for episode 5, The Women in Green Building, and tomorrow for episode 6, The Green Building Marketplace. Visit philgbc.org for more information or contact the PHILGBC National Secretariat at BG2022 at philgbc.org. Once again, thank you to all for your participation this morning for episode 4, The World. Happy World Green Building Week, fellow green builders.